Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Today in this very important video, we are going to discuss a very important doctrine of Islamic philosophy, which is called absolute divine simplicity. I will tell you what absolute divine simplicity is and why do many philosophers believe in it, and what arguments do they presented to substantiate this claim or to substantiate this belief, and how divine simplicity is not widely accepted by all schools of Islamic traditions. Rather, it is only accepted by some schools, and I'll tell you what are those schools who actually believe in absolute divine simplicity. So let us get started. First of all, to understand divine simplicity, we have to understand the distinction between divine attributes and divine essences. So in Islamic worldview or in Islamic creedal schools, which are called Aqidah schools, there are generally two positions. One of the position is that which is held by Islamic philosophers and Islamic mystics, by hukama and urafa, and the other position is the one which is accepted by Islamic theologians and those of Athari creed who are called Ahlul Hadith. So and the theologians are called mutakallimin. So one position is held by hukama and urafa, and the other position is held by Ahlul Hadith or Ahlul Athar and the mutakallimin. The position that is held by hukama and urafa, the mystics and the philosophers, that is the position of absolute divine simplicity. The position of the absolute divine simplicity states that the attributes of God are identical to his essence. That is to say that at the plane of divine essence or at the plane of divinity, there is no distinction, no ontological distinction, no actual distinction or real distinction between the attributes of God and between the essence of God, between whom God is and what attributes does he hold. For example, at the plane of divine essence, the knowledge and the power of God are identical to each other. And the power is identical to wisdom and so on and so forth. And all of these things are identical to existence itself, because God is absolute existence. God is an independent absolute existence that does not derive its reality, that does not derive its existence from something else. So God is haqiqatul wujud, the reality of existence itself, the basis of existence itself, the fundamental structure of reality itself on which all other realities are based upon. So the Islamic philosophers say that while for humans their knowledge and their power and their other attributes, their hearing and their seeing might be distinct from one another because of the ontological gradation that has happened, or because of the weakness in humans, in God there is an absolute simplicity such that God is pure existence, and only this pure existence has all the attributes. And this is the view of the Islamic philosophers and the Islamic mystics. And they argue this because they say that, for example, if we assume the opposite, and if we say that God's attributes are actually distinct from one another and distinct from the divine essence as well, that would entail that God has real ontological distinctions. God has real parts, right? And anything that has real parts is dependent upon its parts to exist. And since God says in Quran as well that, for example, Ya ayyuhan nasu antumul fuqara'u ila Allah wallahu huwal ghaniyyul hamid, that people, you are the one who are beggars in front of God. You are the ones who actually want something from God. But God is that which is absolutely self-sufficient and independent. So of course, an independent and absolutely self-sufficient reality cannot have any real parts, because a reality that actually has parts or that is not absolutely self-sufficient is a reality that depends upon another to exist. And obviously a reality that has parts, it depends upon something else to exist. So composite reality, a reality with parts, cannot be self-sufficient. It cannot be a reality that that is absolutely independent. So for a reality to be absolutely independent, to be absolutely self-sufficient, right, it has to be partless, it has to be non-composite. And for something to be non-composite, its attributes have to be identical to each other. The philosophers do not say that the attributes are not conceptually distinct. Obviously, they are conceptually distinct from one another. The reality of life is different. The conception of life is different than the conception of knowledge, and that is different than the conception of power. But if we are to inquire how they subsist within the divine essence, we would see, we would understand, we would know that these realities in the divine essence are indeed identical to each other. Now, the view of the mutakallimin or Ahlul Athar or Ahlul Hadith is that, and we will make a separate video on it as well, inshallah, in future. Their view is that the attributes are distinct from one another. Now, the thing is, they do not present any substantial rational argument to prove how the attributes are distinct from the divine essence, but they do say that we have to affirm their distinction because of theological reasons and because of how it is described in Quran and because of how they are reading the Quran. Obviously, then once they have established that the attributes are distinct from the divine essence and they are distinct from one another, then they give rational arguments to prove how it is a rationally possible thing. And inshallah, we will make a whole video on this and show what their arguments are in the future. So for now, one can suffice to know that the belief of the Islamic philosophers, the hukama and the urafa, is that sifatuhu ayna zatihi, sifatullahu ayna zatihi, the sifat of the God, the attributes of the God are identical to his essence, and they are not distinct from one another, even though in the human plane we do see distinctions between the attributes. But for the absolute and purest existence, these distinctions cannot exist, because all the perfections are actually identical to the reality of existence itself, since the reality of existence has all the perfections and the reality of existence is absolutely simple. So this is a short introduction to the doctrine of absolute divine simplicity. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe, and inshallah in future we will be bringing more short videos as well to help our audience. Jazakallah, ma'as salama.